The first flight of wines earlier, I was just taking a short break. I head to the men's room, then I was walking back. I haven't had tea breaks. I was looking at those delicious foie gras terrine with chutney sauce, wagyu beef cheeks, I think. Yeah, so I thought the first two wines would go pretty well. All right, with the foie gras terrine that you guys had over the tea break earlier. All right, so I enjoy white wines. I think for me, I personally prefer the first one. I thought it has a lot of secondary aromas, lots of nuances of tropical fruit that would really go well with some of the little snacks or canapes we had earlier. All right, so let's taste together the second flight of today's featured wines, wines 4, 5, and 6. So we'll taste them in context, of course, of its respective appellations, but most importantly, its illustrious vintages. So we can see the three wines that we're going to taste are from the much applauded and much celebrated 2009 and 2010 vintage. All right, so arguably, I mean, the critics have wrote that for the past century in Bordeaux, there were only 3 instances of such back-to-back illustrious vintages. The first was 1899 and 1900. The second was 1928 and 1929, and perhaps 1989 and 1990. All right, so these were the 3, I mean, back-to-back top vintages, which doesn't happen often. All right, of course, the one that we see now is 09 and 2010. All right, so we start with tasting of the 09, all right, which is from the appellation of Medoc. So from a chateau, Davies Ling, pardon my pronunciation, all right, from 2009. So just a bit of background on the property, all right, owned by a couple from the Philippe family. All right, Jacques was an engineer. He got tired working as a consultant, so his wife was from Bordeaux, so they decided to, go back to the countryside and do farming. Right, so that's how they bought over this vineyard in the early 1900s, in the early 1990s, I beg your pardon. All right, so just slightly over, I think, 20 to 30 hectares, if I'm not mistaken, and only, it's maybe slightly lesser than that, and only about 15,000 cases made every year, a smaller winery. All right, so 2009, it's a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Petit Verdot. So we can taste the wine together. So as Malcolm shared, I mean, we always approach tasting in terms of noting its color. So I think for 09 or 010, feel free to contrast with the second glass that you have in terms of excellent ripeness, and of course in terms of phenolic maturity. The colors should be still very deep ruby red, very bright. There shouldn't be any hues of browning. All right, and of course on the aromas. On the nose, so the primary, you still get a lot of primary, very forward primary aromas. All right, so it's a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Petit Verdot. So once again, of course, percentage in that sequence. So once again, we get very forward, dominant aromas of a bit of mint, a bit of capsicum, a bit of cassis from the Cabernet Sauvignon, followed by the plushness of Merlot, plums, and of course the roundness and a touch of a bit of spice, perhaps, right from the Petit Verdot. Who enjoys this wine? Who finds this wine drinkable now? Do you think it will still age a little bit? Could be stored for a couple of years? No, it's ready to drink now. I think it's quite delicious. Right, so one of the interesting things, since we're tasting a flight of 09, 010 vintages, so I took the effort of pulling up some quotes and of course some comments from wine writers with regards to contrasting 2009 and 2010. Right, of course I'm sure there are perhaps wine lovers, wine collectors, and wine buyers here, and of course perhaps sommeliers when they're serving find Bordeaux or vintages of Bordeaux at your establishment or selling them, all right, some angles or some reference with regards to sharing or putting these two great vintages, back-to-back vintages in perspective. All right, so there's this perspective, what we call negociation that says that 09 is a double D and a double R vintage, where it's a vintage of depth and drink now, and of course it's ripe and rich, right? 2009, so it was a very flashy vintage, so to speak. All right, so one winemaker who enjoys cars, he came 2009 to a flashy car, to a Lamborghini or a Ferrari perhaps, right? So flashy, opulent, all right, but very approachable down. Of course, there was a winemaker who said that in contrast, 2010 is more of a classic vintage, all right, a bit more restrained, all right, and of course, in terms of ageability, in terms of structure, in terms of age worthiness, 2010 will be a more stable or more a vintage with more longevity. And of course, in terms of sales, we are talking about wine retailers here, or private wine buyers, in terms of quantity, all right, so based on statistics, 2009 outsold 2010 10 times. So in the States, the 2009 vintage was bought in terms of quantity 10 times more than 2010. All right, of course, we are looking at a viticultural perspective. All right, 09 vintage in 09 was pretty seamless. All the different phases of in field in viticulture, the weather was very agreeable, so it was a rather comfortable vintage where the vignerons, where the winemakers, the viticulturists, they didn't really have to do much with the weather. All right, God was really kind to them on this vintage. But 2010 was a more an erratic vintage, a vintage of jolts. All right, there was drought and rain came, but then of course, that also gave wines its wine structure in terms of acidity, all right, and tannin. So 2010 generally it's what they call it quite a hot and El Nino vintage, but of course that provided the wines in general with lots of longevity and structure. So keeping that in mind, let's move to tasting wine number 5.